People very rarely expect to see one ghost, let alone an entire army of them. Why would a Roman army appear through a wall, and in York of all places? Well, today you'll discover how one young man's ghost sighting led to an exciting and historical discovery. Harry Martindale was only 18 years old when he was sent to fit a pipe in the cellar of Treasurer's house in York. It was in the dark, dank cellar that an army of Roman soldiers appeared.
On the second day, just before lunchtime, I started to hear a musical note. No tune, and I thought it must have been a radio or something. And it got louder and louder, and I realised it was coming from the actual wall there that was leaning on the ladder. Now when I realised this, I just glanced down, and in line with my waist, on the right-hand side, I saw the figure of a Roman soldier come out of the wall. Now, the first thing I saw was the helmet with the plumes on. Now, I knew whatever it was shouldn't be here with me. And it was almost a complete figure of a Roman soldier. I say almost a complete figure because when he came through the wall, I couldn't see it from the knees down. Then a horse started to come out of the wall with a Roman soldier sat astride him, straight across the cellar, and followed the first Roman soldier through the wall opposite. Once the horse had cleared the wall, then Roman soldiers were coming out in twos. I didn't count them. I was in no state to count them, but I say there were at least 20. I made my escape out of here. I went from here to the firm that I worked for in York, told them what I'd seen and told them what they could do with this building, and I never came back here for well over 25 years.
The ghosts that Harry saw, if they were ghosts, are figures of York's past. In some ways, I can only liken them to an action replay, which for some reason Harry could see and hear them perfectly, but they weren't there.
Not knowing Mr. Martindale, I'm not quite sure why they appeared to him at all, but I think you need about half a day to answer this. But I think that if he was here, certain time, certain place, certain set of circumstances, then I think perhaps he's had a little peer through a fissure in time. It's not a widely known theory, but I think most hauntings, most psychic things are not associated with imprints on the walls. I think that people get a glimpse through time.
Although it's been over 40 years since Harry saw the ghosts, he still remembers the very details of their clothing.
The first thing I saw was a helmet. The helmet, the metal came right underneath the chin here. Through that, I could see that there was growth of hair on the face. See it? On the top half, they wore like the tunic, but on the bottom half, they wore a skirt with leather strips going down. Now, as I was going across the cellar, the only side I could see was the front and the right-hand side. And on the right-hand side, they carried like a short sword.
25 years ago, historian and writer John Mitchell contacted Harry through York Tourist Board and asked him if he would let a panel of historians pick his brains to try and discover the identity of the Roman soldiers. The question and answer session brought surprising results.
They were a group of Roman soldiers from the very late period of the Empire. The Empire was beginning to crumble. The main legions had been withdrawn to defend Rome, and these, if you like, were probably little local lads, little local companies, brought in again and again and again to repel invaders from over the seas, overworked, which might explain why they were so dishevelled, tired and depressed.
They all looked as if they were tired, worn out and scruffy. It's a known fact that when they went on patrol, they had to go out for at least a week or a fortnight. Out, maybe walking to Tadcaster and back, so when they came back to their garrison, they would be.
The question remained, what were a group of Roman soldiers doing in York, England?
From where the minster stands was the headquarters building of the Roman forces, a magnificent building. There's still a pillar from it outside the minster, which shows you what a large and important building it must have been. And the Roman road runs 18 feet below ground, the present ground level, through the cellars of Treasurer's house.
And it's a known fact now that when they approached the entrance room garrison, they had to announce their arrival by blowing on a short horn. This is the first thing I've heard. And these men I saw in here were called the Forgotten Army.
They would possibly be the Forgotten Army because the main armies had been withdrawn to defend Rome, which was under attack. And they were the ones that were left behind, the remnants, if you like, without much hope of support or reinforcements from Rome.
Treasurer's house was originally owned by the Treasurer of York Minster and was passed between aristocrats and peasant tenants through the years, until a gentleman named Frank Green eventually acquired it. He gave it to the National Trust in 1930, but not before he'd had an unexpected party guest of his own.
At a fancy dress party, one of the lady guests wandered about the building. This was in Frank Green's time, and she came across a Roman soldier and thought it was a man in fancy dress, a guest, and she asked Frank Green who was that somewhat rude guest, because as she was made to go through this doorway, he dropped his spear across, and she knew she wasn't supposed to go in there. And Frank Green looked surprised and said, but there's nobody here dressed as a Roman soldier.
Although Harry avoided the cellar for many years, when he returned to Treasurer's house, he had another freaky experience.
I've been down here with various parties, and I was down here one day, stood at the other side of the cellar, and whilst I was telling my story, a lady screamed. We had her exit out of here, and she was in such a state, all she would say was she started to see something come out of the wall, and as soon as she saw that, she just out.
I wouldn't have thought that anything's been seen or felt in here for a very, very long time. It's cold. The energy's gone from whatever I think Mr. Martindale saw. Having said that, in good conscience, I wouldn't like to spend a night in this little room all on my own. You know, this is a professional sort of psychic investigator that's sort of making that comment. There is rather a dark, thrummy, negative movie.
York is one of the most haunted cities in the UK, and spooky happenings are commonplace for many reasons.
Long before the Romans ever arrived in this part of Britain, this was Brigantia. This was a 2,000-year-old empire. The city of York, as it was then, was the city of Brigantia, which was the home of the northern pagan tribes. So there's an awful, and so where we are now, we're below street level, and we've actually sort of come out of the real world of the streets of the lovely old touristy city of York. And you're actually making contact in this little room with something darker and older.